As you can see, the religious service earlier this morning that President Bush and Vice President Cheney attended at St. John's Episcopal Church looks to be wrapping up at this moment. We were showing you live right before we went on the air, the President and his daughters and wife going to that service this morning. And presidents have been doing that ever since President
James Madison,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Q54 is the view that they all kneel on. We know that.
Well, we're back with some inauguration trivia. Here's the question. Did you know that Franklin Roosevelt was the first president to be inaugurated on January 20th? The 20th Amendment moved the start of a president's term. Roosevelt was also the last president to be inaugurated before the change. When the swearing-in took place on March 4th, I know one of the reasons he hated the weather. God, what was it like in March after yesterday in January?
Well, there are certainly more than 35 diehard Democrats still in Washington today. You know, you were mentioning
that
they
some
were
are taking
off on that
denial cruise.
Now, some would not miss this event for anything.
Gary Nuremberg is with one of them at the U.S. Capitol on the west side. Good morning, Gary.
Good morning, Gary.
Andrea. Hello, Mike. Well, as you know, the inauguration is a national event, but it has local consequences. Congressman James Moran is a Democrat of Virginia who is unhappy with some of those local consequences from this inauguration. What's the issue that has you concerned?
Well, they managed to curb my enthusiasm by saying that they're going to take at least $12 million from the region's Homeland Security money to partially pay for this event. And, of course, we find that objectionable. It's never been done before. You know, we appropriated millions of dollars for New York and Boston, and it just doesn't seem to me with my taxpayers in Northern Virginia should be footing part of this bill. But, you know, I don't want to be picky. It's just unfortunate. So that's a battle we'll have to fight in appropriations later on.
Well, what's the consequence to Northern Virginia of losing those funds?
Well, you know, this is the money that we use when the alert level is increased. We have to pay for overtime. We've had to, the Arlington and Alexandria firemen, emergency medical people, police, all have to have the most sophisticated, technologically capable equipment, and that costs money, and it's all because of a national issue, this a threat from terrorism. So that money is going to be, we're going to have to use some of that money to pay for this. But it's not fair to focus exclusively on this. It's just that that's my responsibility to meet our Homeland Security needs, and it's unfortunate that with all the pomp and circumstance, it's not being funded by the federal government, but being taken from Homeland Security money.
Congressman, bear with me for just a moment.
Yeah.
A producer's mentioning something in my ear about some kind of breaking news. Let me turn back to Mike and Andrea while we find out what's going on.
Gary, it's the president actually leaving the
left church.
Yes.
The breaking news is the church service is over at St. John's Episcopal, which is right across the street from the White House, and the president and first family are getting back into their limos and heading back to the White House before they head off to where you are.
Yeah.
Okay, back to you, Gary.
All right, well, thank you very much, Mike and Andrea. As we continue to look at these pictures of the president and his family leaving the church directly across from the White House, we'll resume our interview with Congressman Moran. Congressman, the president's first term was largely defined by the war on terror and the invasion of Iraq. Yeah. What do you think is going to define the president's second term, and when it's over, as a member of the loyal opposition, what is it you hope that he will have accomplished?
I think he needs to understand that ultimately politics is the art of compromise. He's going to have to compromise with the Democrats. This is still basically a 50-50 country, and he can't further divide us. He's got to pull us together. The politics of polarization might prevail in a presidential election, but if he wants to get legislation through, he's got to understand he's going to have to compromise in every area, and certainly on Social Security. He's not going to get anything through in Social Security unless he comes up with a more moderate proposal, not the radical one that some of his base supporters have recommended.
Well, what kind of reform of Social Security do you think would be acceptable to your members of the caucus?
You know, you don't have to do much. All you have, for example, there's an income cap of $90,000 right now. If we increase that to $90,300 next year instead of $90,200, nobody will feel the difference. It will give us enough money to shore up the trust funds so that retirees, particularly the baby boom generation, will have more than enough money. This is not a crisis. It'll be a manufactured crisis if they keep telling us that the trust funds are insolvent. They're not. Social Security isn't bankrupt. With some minor tinkering, we're going to get through this. And we're willing to compromise, put some of the money into equity index funds, but these private funds, if they have to be paid with general tax funds, that's not going to work. So that's what the kind of compromise that we need to be talking about.
Congressman, thank you very much. I can make one prediction about the president's second term, and that, Mike and Andrea, is 4 more years of interviews with Congressman Moran.
Boy, you're really going out on a limb there, aren't you, Gary? I'll tell you what. Well, you know, we just saw the president leaving St. John's Episcopal Church. It's a very popular church for presidents.
And Audrey Barnes has more on that. She's back at Broadcast House. Good morning again.
Good morning, Mike and Andrea. St. John's Episcopal Church is called the Church of the Presidents. And this year, the church rector will actually have a role in the inauguration itself.